Hello and welcome, fellow citizens near and far. Thank you for joining us for today's conversation, Neighborhood Safety and Trust. It's going to be a good one. Let's get to it. We're going to be talking about encouraging an open dialogue and empathy around different perspectives when it comes to safety and trust. We're going to be exploring the impact of what safety and trust looks like on an individual daily lives kind of thing, as well as mental health and a sense of belonging. We'll be discussing practical steps for individuals so they can actually take and build trust and safety in their own community. We're highlighting the roles of personal relationships, community events, and local spaces. Sharing resources and information, I hope, on local initiatives that promote said safety and trust. Hello, my friend. Welcome in. And then we're going to be celebrating the strength and resiliency of communities that have worked on this goal. So there's lots to talk about when it comes to today's conversation of neighborhood safety and trust. It can go many different directions. I think that every neighborhood can have a sense of safety. Once, like I said, it's really important, the role of personal communication, relationships, events, and third spaces as a way to facilitate people getting to know the people in their neighborhood. It's a vital piece to it for sure.
Oh God, the internet's so weird.
Yes, it is. Mugiwara does ask though, what if neighborhoods designed a person of high trust per block for policing? And it kind of reminds me of those ideas of like neighborhood watch programs, and how I feel like a lot of us people our age kind of scoff at the idea of that being necessary, but it actually is absolutely necessary to have each other's back, and and that usually takes some form of discipline, monthly meetings, some sort of hierarchy, maybe somebody's got a schedule and like that kind of thing. And then there's it also kind of reminds me how we were speaking on a live during the first season about how the people in your neighborhood act as neighborhood watch. Like you would get in trouble with Mrs. What's her name down the street because she caught you smoking or whatnot, and those kinds of deals is what we would need more prevalent in today's age, instead of instead of the ideas of people like the simulation theory idea that if you've never seen your neighbors taking groceries, then does that mean that this is all a simulation? And it's like, hold on. Like, you should know your people, the people next door, a lot better than that sort of thing. It can go in a lot of different directions. And I think that having somebody in the neighborhood who is minded to that idea of like neighborhood safety is definitely a good starting point, and making sure that person knows the ins and outs of the neighborhood, and that like being connected in community comes along with, I think, safety. What are your thoughts on this, Tony, just as a general idea?
Oh, yeah. This is one of those where I have to say that it feels, yes, like something parallel to what already exists. Obviously, we already have police, and that's sort of their job. But the other thing that scares me is the same thing that happens within HOAs is people on power trips. And so this isn't me naysaying. This isn't me being like a pessimistic Pete right off the rip and trying to shoot it down. It's just saying that when we get to this level of community bonding and building, I think there has to be a high degree of trust, transparency. This to me seems like something you could institute after you have a community council, a group of people that meet. They may not be on city council. They may not be part of the government per se or some official organization, but it's just people who are hip, they're privy, they know what's going on, they trust each other, and they have a general sense of trust from the community. I could see the value in having sort of like a citizen brigade, but I would be on the onset, I would be hyper aware of people on power trips. I mean, we saw it during the pandemic. Anybody that was given any modicum of power over consumers, attendees, vendors, service providers, any of that stuff, we saw people take it to the max. So that would be my upfront worry, but I think with the right kind of strength in community bonding and building, it's viable.
Right on. I think it's a good idea. It is viable, and I think it's very much down to like the per community thing. This is not one of those deals that's like a checklist that we can give to every single person, and like, that will, that'll do sort of thing. It's definitely an ins and outs of very different communities facing their challenges uniquely. But the overall sense of trust, in my opinion, comes from like relationships, knowing the community, taking the time to know the people next door. Hello, Dustin. Thank you for joining us for today's conversation. I'm grateful for having you.
As always, I appreciate you being. I'm happy to be here. I appreciate you having me.
For sure, for sure. When it comes to neighborhood safety and trust, what are your like initial thoughts on the subject?
I mean, so as we talk about how we're going to build parallel systems along the ones that we currently use, in the day to day, I mean, we have to, in order to properly divest from the system, you have to build, alternatives. People have to have food security. Like, even if we do go boycott, if we do strike, if we do, end up, using, if we do end up using some of these leverages, that it's going to impair our ability to use the system as currently designed. We will, I think that part of the purpose of building the community is to help you out, divest from capitalism as much as possible. Some of the things that I've been working on are categorizing, like in my community, categorizing and just taking an inventory of all the tools that everybody has. We don't all need a tractor. We do not all need a jackhammer. Like, ultimately, we need to focus what little bit of resources that we have in the most effective way possible, and kind of like planning that out, being wise with what little resources we have and maximizing that, I think has been, super important.
Right on.
When it comes to actually building the trust thing, that comes down to communication, actually getting out there, meeting your neighbors, and then the kind of communications that allow you to build meaningful relationships. Yeah. So, like, really building a bond around the idea that I'm concerned about declining material conditions. I'm worried about the future of wages for your children. I'm worried about the sustainability of what we consider to be the American dream. I want that for you, and I hope that you want that for me. And as long as you trust, like, we don't have to agree on everything, but do you trust that I want what's best for you? Well, then, like, we can start from there.
For sure, for sure. And I think, and again, I think that's going to look different, like community to community to community. There's like a baseline of like, I see you, you see me. And that's like, that's the threshold of sorts. I know that in like, I just recently moved and I have new neighbors and things like that. And I'm trying to get to the space where, like back in the day, one would go around with like, cookies or whatever to introduce themselves. And like, it is kind of scary. Someone said, meeting new people can be scary. And you're right. But like, it's a two-way street. It's a double, it's like, if we can put ourselves there, then you'd be surprised in like what can come back. And, like the idea of just those small little interactions, the idea of like, of building the bridge, can go a lot farther if there's, if there's shit that hits the fan, because we are constantly looking at, global catastrophes, climate change, things, like hurricanes and tsunamis and all of these different things that are like plowing through individuals and communities and stuff. And like what we see on the ground is that, the helpers come out and they start to rebuild, and things go around, to kind of help each other. Like, it's that argument that at its base, I believe humans are good, and like when in desperate need and stuff, we'll reach out and help. It's not, they've done studies about like the looting and about like the Lord of the Flies kinds of things, and they found out that it's just not the truth. Like, human beings will naturally usually gravitate towards helping each other than over stabbing each other in the back or what have you. And I think that stranger danger, satanic panic, and like all of the psychological things that have like put us neighbor against neighbor, is in essence designed to get us, of course, atomized and individualized, so we're paying for everything and we don't have any power outside of the amount of money that we have. It's you know, tinfoil on. It's a big psyop, but at the same time, it is one of those things that if you can break that mold and get outside of that box, you'll find that people are genuinely good, and that we are in a space where we can move forward in good faith with each other. And like I said, there's bad apples out there. There's going to be like the grump on the street who doesn't want anything to do with the community. Like those things do occur, but like just as important as it is to watch, you know, the neighborhood at large. If something happens to the old Grouch's house, gets burglarized, or it burns down. Like I'm hoping that his community is still there for him, even though he's a curmudgeon. And
Right.
that's where it's at sometimes.
Now, I think that we face unique challenges. One, with the current housing situation, where you, especially in the suburbs, where you have such a diverse mix of people, generationally, culturally. I think that you'll have neighborhoods that are, a healthy percentage of them are 60, 70 plus. They've been there since those neighborhoods were built in the 70s. And then naturally, as those people get older and they pass away, they pass those on to their kids, or those get sold, and young people end up acquiring them. And so you have these kind of blended communities where you have people who have fundamentally different problems, concerns, things that draw their attention day to day. Building that, bridging that, the generational gap is honestly going to be one of the more, there are geographic challenges, there are generational challenges that are unique to this particular struggle. And I think that we're all kind of just figuring it out as we go, figuring out what works, how you can build solidarity with these people, how you can kind of ingrain this sense of community. And again, I think that some of it has to come down to, people need to believe that you genuinely care. It's for a fact, there are people in my community who hold reprehensible views. I don't want them to starve to death. You know what I mean? And if you can believe that I don't take joy in your suffering and I don't want you to suffer, then maybe we can start there.
And that sometimes is like the only place to start. Like I see the human in you, you see the human in me. Let's build from there. And there's that idea of the common ground that 85 to 99% of us actually stand on without really understanding and knowing it. But that's a bed of places to find that agreement and that common ground. But it does have to start with coming in good faith, seeing the human on the other side. And I feel like this is the part where we can obviously say that social media has been as a double-edged sword. Don't get me wrong, it's connected me to some amazing people, like minds, and we can discuss whether it's an echo chamber or not. But there are, there's that other side of it where people see, especially on other platforms like the Book of Face and things, where it's neighbors literally yelling at each other, and every space is designed a little bit differently here in cyberspace. But it's one of those that the rhetoric and things, the barking online, that kind of deal, it is prevalent, and it comes to the point where when we're out and about in the real world, we find ourselves I know that there was a discussion a little while ago about going out to a function that had mixed political views because it was a barbecue or some sort of neighborhood event, and the person's video that I was watching is I have to be on my best behavior because I don't want to cause a scene or whatever. And then afterwards, what, I actually had a lot of fun, and everybody was on their best behavior. And it's no, they were being genuinely human, enjoying the vibrations of the space because they weren't disconnected through this black mirror space. And so somebody will get in their mind that so and so is a terrible monster because everything they say online is just gruesome and horrific or whatever. But then they'll see them at the barbecue, and they'll still have, and hopefully they'll still have a good conversation, and be able to connect on matters on a face-to-face kind of level. So yeah, there is sort of, when it comes to this discussion, social media takes kind of a precedent part of this because I think it is in a lot of cases detrimental. Any thoughts about that?
I mean, I agree that ultimately what I would say is that I don't believe that the online discourse is representative of the way that these conversations actually take place in person. I feel like that it's because you lose so much in context with text because you are, I mean, ultimately, I don't have the time to write out. When I was in my 20s, like, I mean, I said, 20, 21, 22 on Facebook in the early days where I didn't have anything else going. Yeah, I might spend an hour writing an essay, going on a full diatribe, a nuanced, detailed analysis of a problem. Um, in reality, that's not how conversations work because I say something, you say something, and then as long as there's a good faith discussion being had, then we can reach the objective truth therein. And I think that that's more representative of how these conversations go in real life, um, and that social media is not really reflective of that. I think that in large part, the public forum, I think that some of the conversations that get had by, you know, quote unquote thought leaders of liberalism or conservatism, I don't believe necessarily that their conversations are representative of the way that these things happen between neighbors and between, people who have shared common interests locally. I feel like that these conversations often get had by people who do not have an actual investment in the conversation. They're hypotheticals to them. They're devil's advocates arguments. It's just them trying to do an intellectual exercise. It doesn't necessarily like there is nothing in it for them to acquiesce or to be reasonable about, and therefore I think that a lot of the discourse that you see online is not necessarily representative of the way these conversations get had face to face. It's all the more reason to do it that way.
Yeah.
I think what you said is interesting. Whenever everybody is on their P's and Q's, when everybody is on their best behavior, that does bother me to a degree. The idea that politeness as a social construct would stop people from having meaningful discourse. I find that I am not necessarily good in these spaces, or I'm not invited to a lot of these spaces because I'm incapable of keeping it to small talk. So
Yeah, no,
it's
I totally feel you. There's a part of me that feels around the app. I've heard it called like radicalized, like because like somebody will start a conversation of just some innate little thing, but like my brain automatically kind of sees how it
capitalism.
leads to like some tinfoil or like a rail against capitalism, and like I'll try to connect, but like all the words in my head are like just it's not common polite conversation. It is, and like don't be wrong, sometimes I have that conversation, sometimes that conversation is necessary and needed, but like
Yeah.
like everyday people just going about their everyday lives don't want to hear radicalized people talking the entire time. And it's just one of those things where it's like I understand, like I still understand how to like have conversation, of course, but like there's important stuff in my mind and in my heart, like on this national scope. And I think that one of the key things that one can do when sitting in conversation is an active listening sort of thing. Like the idea of like let the person be heard, let them be seen, let them say whatever crazy thing they might have on their heart, or what have you, whatever it is. But like and then like in an active listening way, kind of continue the conversation from where they are, starting from where they are, using the language that they're comfortable with to try and bridge that gap and create common ground. And it's one of those, again, it happens in the middle of individual conversations, and like this space with the separation of glass and technology between us, it's not nearly the same as like when we're actually standing face to face and like feeling the vibrations of each other's like hearts and minds. Like it is totally different, and because of that, it's different in all spaces and in all sizes. Tony, do you have any thoughts about this?
We have to think about human relationships on so many levels, whether we're talking about romantic partners, families, friends, and then outward from there is where people would place community, right? Your neighbors, acquaintances, extended connections. But when we zoom back into that inner periphery, we notice just how much in shambles those relationships are. All over social media, people ain't talking to their family, haven't talked to them since 2020. Relationships are falling apart. They don't talk to their siblings. Their friend groups are falling apart. And what I'm seeing is an epidemic of our inability to relate to one another. And if I had to put on my tinfoil hat, I'd say that that's because every single element of our life is customized to us. We don't even know what it's like to encounter shit we don't like anymore. We've forgotten. That's at least part of the pie chart. And so when we're talking about going out and connecting with community, we got to learn how to trust again, man. There's people who would look at my white skin and they wouldn't trust me. There's people who would look at their brown skin and not trust them. There's people who won't even date anymore because they don't trust the gender that they're interested in. What the fuck is going on? There's people who don't trust their own parents, their own siblings. And so what we're really asking people to do is go out on a risky limb. That's where this all begins, is a willingness to get your heart broken, a willingness to be let down. And that's what I ask of the people closest to me. You know how many times I'm going to let down the person I love in this life, and they're going to let me down? Broken promises. But we show up anyway to love that person because, damn it, you too, me too, him too, them too, we're all going to fuck up at some point. And the trust is in that I trust you're going to own your shit and come back tomorrow and try again. And that is one of the most fundamental social contracts. And it's just been so repeatedly broken by people we're close to, people we love, people in institutions, police, judges, prosecutors, like up and down the chain, everywhere we look, there's no trust. So how do you rebuild it? We can't just divorce ourselves from reality simultaneously. Only the great comet from the sky could do that for us. So in the meantime, we have to go out on a limb and start loving in the face of the risk of getting your shit let down. You might get your heart broken. Billy down the street might say some weird shit about trans people or black people, or somebody might be talking endless shit about white Christians and their pretend sky daddy. Get over it, man. I don't know what else to tell people. Earth is cruel and humans are stupid. So what do we do in light of that? Our best is what we do. And that's all any of us have to give. And nobody should make any deeper promises than that. I'm going to give you my best today because Earth is cruel and people are dumb. Me too. I go way out of my way not to be dumb. And I'm still pretty damn dumb. So what we're talking about here, community safety, begins with trust. How could I trust anyone with my child or my safety? You go out on a limb. It's risky. And we all need to admit it. And we can't hippie flower child our way around the fact that like there is a risk involved in trusting another human being. And we own it.
Okay.
Say it. And then we move on.
So you bring an interesting point about, the trust being at probably an all-time low, or at least, all-time low within our lifetimes. Because, don't get me wrong, this nation has suffered a civil war before. So, and it may or may not be on the verge of another. That's a whole ass other debate. But, trust as a way to, communicate civilization through ages and whatnot feels like it's very thin right now. And like I said at the top of this, we could look at institutions and ideas such as stranger danger, satanic panic, fear of the other, even things like keeping up with the Joneses has a part to play in this because the greed or the jealousy of not being able to stack up against the neighbors could also erode that very trust. But I would say that where it is built upon, the only place I know trust to be built upon is within conversation, connection, building a relationship. And that takes hard work. It's not something that's easily done. It's not something that happens automatically. When we were kids in school, it was easy to make friends because we were all there for 8 hours a day and together in this classroom or what have you, which is one of the reasons why as adults, many people might have a few work friends, but they don't really have any friends because we don't exist anywhere outside of our 9 to 5s or whatever in a constant basis, unless we have something of a bowling club or darts or, we go to the Kiwanis meeting or, those kinds of things. It's getting out into the community that establishes that platform for those relationships to even be built upon on the first place. And so for those of us who feel satiated in our cyber communities and never actually venturing out into the real world, then that trust is absolutely at an all-time low. And that can be detrimental to the neighborhood. Oh, is it? Hold on, I can't hear you. You're muted, yeah.
My fault. Um, I think that some of the things that come along with the declining material conditions, like there existed an environment where you could have a hyper individual American identity where everybody saw themselves in their individual ability to go get what it is that they wanted. Like I think that there was a time in America that if you wanted to work really hard and you worked 2, 3 jobs, you would have, and you started doing that in the 70s. By now, you would have achieved a level of material wealth that would inure you to the struggles of millennials and Gen Z today. I feel like that the collective struggle that we experience as we witness the decline of material conditions, like the environment no longer exists for that hyper individuality. Like by necessity, people of our generation are having to, are having to reach into collectivism, explore communism, explore socialism. Like, okay, or like as a lot of people my age, as they, their kids are getting, 5, 6, 7, 8, we are recognizing that, look, man, like while I understand that the institution of public education is necessary, we also recognize that there are some failures here and there need to be some reforms, some revisions, like that align with the best interest of like, why do we educate people? I think that we're starting to ask some of the questions that reinforce that we do have common shared interests. Like you are worried about what's in your best interest of your children, mine as well. And when we start looking at like, we all collectively realize or are recognizing that the system is not capable of keeping up with what have been, human expectations built over the last 3 generations. I think there's a conversation to be had, and maybe this is one that, again, helps build solidarity and helps build trust. Is like, was the American dream, was it just that? Was that never supposed to be a realistic expectation? Was that put up by capitalism, like while it was available? Or are we at a place where is our reality, should it have been more closely aligned with our grandparents and great grandparents who grew up in 1,200 square foot, 30 by 40 dog run houses? Is that actually in alignment with the human experience? And this is something that we have to decide for ourselves. Like, if we agree that this system that we have right now is the preferable one, and that this is something that we would like to continue, then we have to acknowledge that the system as currently constructed is no longer keeping up with expectations. And if we agree that those are appropriate expectations, then things have to change. And we're all collectively invested in changing those. Again, like that, I think that's another like topic of like trying to bring people's humanity to the forefront and like figure out, do we want the same things? As I think most of us do. I think they would profess that they do. And if I believe that you actually believe that, then it's a matter of aligning with what you believe with the choices that you make. I think that there are places for hard conversations for people who still have reprehensible worldviews. I think that I can't police every thought in everybody's head, but I will go out of my way to defend people from, like, you're not going to be out here inflicting needless suffering on other people. Like, whether it's being disrespectful or whether it's being outright violent. I think that, like establishing the social dynamic that you want to see is vastly, like, I think that it's integral for building a community that has trust, especially with people who have different cultural backgrounds.
Oh yes. And like, yeah, that different cultural backgrounds definitely play a large part in this because, whether we're talking, and like, again, this kind of goes to, I love talking about something like this on like a macro level, but it certainly is like micro application. Because, like, right. There is no, the neighborhood safety and watch programs of the past and stuff were a great way for communities that participated in them to, like, have that shared commitment, that kind of goal of safety. Right. And, like, we see these days with this massive amount of isolation. And, yes, the pandemic had a large part to play in that. Like, a lot of people lost the sensibility of having social skills because it's like any other muscle. If you don't use it, it atrophies, that kind of deal. And so now we find ourselves in the other side of this thing where we have to rebuild, and I feel there's part of this where a lot of people hope that it'll be done for them, that like, they'll just walk out their door one day and the structure will be available and they don't really have to do that much work. And don't be wrong, it would be really great if that were the thing, but unfortunately it's not. Like, it takes little pieces of effort from every single person involved, including the ones who don't feel like they have a part to play. Everybody has a part to play. And so when it comes to where we actually live, boots on the ground, the people around us, like, yes, it can be kind of scary to start that bridge building, knock on the door, ask for sugar, or, like whatever that initiation kind of thing is, bringing over cookies or what have you. It's a scary place to be in, for sure. There's a vulnerability there. But it's an opportunity and a chance to do some really cool stuff. Like, you don't know who your neighbors are. They could be really cool people that you'll end up like, hanging out with, like legitimately having fun with on a like weekly basis kind of deal. But if you don't start the road of that, you'll never really know. And on the other end of that, it might be people that like, yeah, you don't really agree with like their viewpoints and whatever. And every time you have to talk to them, it kind of feels like a chore. But it's still worth noting, like, that, if they're there, they're safe, like, knowing when they go on vacation or letting them know when you go on vacation so somebody can watch your house. Like, these are the kinds of elements that are needed on the day-to-day lives of everybody. And, like, that's a society for you. So, like, it does take a part of us actually stepping out our front door and trying it. And, like, within one's comfortability zone is of course you have to step out of your comfort zone in order to really live and experience and grow, but we're not wanting you to like launch yourself into dangerous territory, like if you feel threatened, that's never gonna be conducive to like a good trustful kind of space, but it still starts with you getting going outside of your walls, your space, and like trying to connect to somebody else. Real quick, I do want to say we crossed the half-hour mark. I want to thank my fellows for being up here and speaking with us today. One or two of my guests looks like they may have been up to some other things in life, so this might be the conversation for us today, but it's a really good one. Thank you guys for being here, and thank everybody down in the comments who's like typing along and asking questions. Liking and sharing the live is very important, letting TikTok know that this is the place to be. And with that, I kind of want to turn specifically to we've been talking about the role of personal relationships, and and I think that tangentially, having a space to go to, having somewhere in the community, a third space, as it were, to find a space where we can have those opportunities for community is really important. And that is something that we have talked about in the past, is third spaces and how those look different from place to place. Like we immediately think of like libraries and parks and things, but that's not in every community. And so one of the ways that we can further engage our people is by we talked about, I think it was like Monday or Tuesday, about providing a space of like sweet corn on Sunday afternoons, in like in front of your garage, like making your yard the third space for the community for like once a month or whatever, can really radically bring a lot of good changes to it. So what do you think about that?
I actually like that suggestion a lot. Like the idea that if you have the means, that is something like a small thing, like roasted corn would be a good, like the idea that I think that food is a way, has historically been a good way to bring people in. It's any time that someone is trying to recruit, or like they're trying to, like, if you've got a meeting of youth and you're trying to establish I guess a culture or a society or whatever, like food is a really good way to get people in the door. Even if that's all they come from, at least they came, and it gives you the opportunity to talk. I think that is a good idea. There was something else that you touched on and that I really wanted to get into. The third space is like sometimes, taking again inventory of who has what. Like, you're not going to be like, not everybody has to be the cog of their community. Sometimes it takes you getting out, meeting other people in your neighborhood, and they'll be the central spoke that holds everybody together. But you do kind of need to have these conversations in order to find out what the community structure is and where you fit into it. For me, like on my space, I happen to have a space where I can host people, and I'm going to start having other like-minded people if you want to come over and train specifically in the combat space. Like, it will be an opportunity for us to, one, grow, get better, like get to a place where you feel comfortable controlling the social dynamic and being able to protect people that you care about. And whenever you feel like you have the ability to protect people, you feel a little more confident in exposing your friends, like people who might not be of like mind. It helps to be able to know that if nothing else, everything will remain respectful, or that we can handle if it doesn't. Like there is a certain amount of like confidence and trust that can do, and that's kind of the space that I've done. But again, the third spaces are integral. Creating a space where like-minded people can get together, and then trying to make those as welcoming to other people as possible.
Absolutely. I think that what you touch on there about teaching people skills is another great way to like build a trust among that relationship. Sharing in tactics and ideas and like really helping somebody be more confident in their own lives is by far and away a great ability to help build that trust up for sure. Tony, do you have any words for us? I see you're really active in the chat, and I appreciate that.
I'm keeping an eye on it. Third spaces, let's just rewind. So what we're actually talking about with parallel systems is innovation and revitalization. Those are the two corporate boardroom words that your local, municipality and economic development, those are the terms that they would use for it. We're talking about innovation and revitalization. And that's as simple as I can put it. So when we're talking about, hey, get together, meet people, some people are going to hear that and be like, how is that the revolution? How does that lead to change? And it's like, no. We're fostering an ecosystem of ideas. And when somebody's got an idea, support them on it. Help them build it. Try to build in parallel. You don't want to join your local Rotary or Kiwanis. I've said this a gazillion times. Make a new one. You're not a church person? Make a new one. You think there should be a summer camp where you teach people self-defense and maybe how to handle firearms? Do it. You could do that. You think there should be one where they learn how to can food, to plant a garden appropriately? Do it, man. Natural water filters, rain catch systems, if your municipality allows it. Like they're just ideas. That's all. And so when we're telling people, like, get to know your neighbor, have a space where you can go, if it's coffee, whiskey, guitars, cars, sewing, books, it doesn't matter, man. You hang out. Like, I promise you, all the greatest revolutions didn't start in spaces of activism. What do we want? Change. When do we want it? Now. No, they were hanging out somewhere. Hanging, chilling, talking, being humans together, like we're doing right now. That's how this system starts to change, because the thing that I have to reiterate the loudest until my dying breath is that systems are not things. You can't go and touch capitalism, man. It is a representation of an idea that is brought to life by the people of that system. We are capitalism. We are the thing. And so when we talk about building new systems, we have to realize that it is our daily discipline. A system could be as simple as my alarm goes off at 6, I wake up and I instantly drink water, I take deep breaths, I do a little exercise, then I eat this, then I go here, then I do that. That's your system. The system is there to help you anticipate what comes next or what you'll do in the event of a crisis. All these things that we've so lost touch with the vocabulary of politics that systems, there's no magic legislative button, And so in this space, when we're encouraging community activism, or what I call localism, I'd prefer to call myself a localist rather than a capitalist, communist, socialist, or any of those other anarchist even. Fuck all that. I'm a localist. That's what I want. And so what we're saying is go hang out, get to know people, Have ideas. That's innovation. And then as you build systems of either security or education or food, whatever that might be, some sort of economic engine or spiritual engine or place, third space, whatever that is, that's revitalization. Resuscitating with those little electric paddle things that George Clooney used to use on that show from the 90s. Like we're hitting our communities with those things. But it ain't my job to do it for Maryland. It ain't my job to do it for Oklahoma. It ain't my job to do it for Wyoming. It's my job to do it for my little neck of the woods in Ohio, because I'm one man who smells weird after 3 days with no shower, who poops just like you, who needs food, who likes hugs and has his head scratched at the end of the night. Like, I'm just like you, man. And I can only do so much. And so what we're asking people to do is, like, let's do the nameless, faceless revolution, the one that can't be COINTELPRO'd, because it's everybody Tyler Durden style. No names, no bumper stickers, no catchy bullshit. You just go do it. Go innovate and revitalize with the people near you. Go be the change. Then they can't be thwarted. And if there's any attempts to by anybody, I hope you have been doing those things in self-defense, firearm training, negotiation, and de-escalation. I hope some of you have educated yourselves on that. But in the meantime, just have ideas, get your George Clooney paddles, and start pumping some electricity back into this damn system and revitalize it. That's the conversation in a nutshell.
I think some people honestly see activism as like a world, like a specific world of ideas and things, when it's actually far more expansive. It's a whole ass universe. And you're right. And you pointed to that very beautifully. What do you got, US? Thank you so much for joining us today on this conversation of neighborhood and safety. I know that your visions and what you're working on definitely helps build trust in neighborhoods. So I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Yes, ma'am. And I appreciate you for inviting me. It's been like other people right now. Today's been just a really tiring day. So I've just been kind of resting and doing some self-care today. But there's something that I haven't heard y'all touch on. And I think we all need to remember 5 years ago was COVID, right? And they basically kept us in the house for 2 years, and we isolated ourselves. We developed the habit of becoming these raging introverts, right? Especially people that are more ambiverts, right? People who were both like kind of a little bit of the other. And we end up having this adjustment disorder, right? Where we don't know how to communicate with each other, and we don't even know where to start. And something as someone like me, who is actually very introverted, who gets exhausted by talking to a significant amount of people or just talking in general a lot, something that I had to really work on is when it comes to socializing, connecting, and building that trust with your neighbors, you have to start small. It's those very small efforts. Like even when you're at your local grocery store and you're talking to the lady or the guy, the cashier, just kind of just chit-chatting with them, learning how to communicate again with one another, even if it's in short conversations, where we have conversations here where I get to talk to you amazing people. Like, I am so incredibly blessed to call you guys my friends, but I would not have been able to do what I'm doing right now on this live if I didn't learn how to re-socialize with people, right? Learning how to talk to people, learning in those little bitty small efforts. Now I live in a cul-de-sac, and I know every single one of my neighbors now because of my crazy dogs, and they're always learning to escape, and everyone knows who my dogs are. But because of that, I was learning how to communicate, taking those opportunities to have conversations with people, even if they're in those very short moments, because the more you do it, the less afraid, the less uncomfortable, the more confident you are to talk to strangers again, right? As a mental health professional, I've seen it so much, the adjustment disorder of not knowing how to talk to one another because we were so isolated, right? And if people think getting on social media, making videos, or even commenting is talking to, you're really not, because you're not having those free flowing conversations like we're having right now in this group. And I think that's so important, because you have to learn how to do that. This is not something that you just magically have, right? You lose, if you don't use it, you lose it. So like that train of thought process is so valid in these communities. And I'm working with my HOA because I'm wanting my my sister gave me a whole bunch of garden stuff, and I want to do a community garden in my neighborhood. So we're building up a plan on who's going to start what seedling and who's better at what and what we can bring to the garden and when the schedule of when we're bringing it together. So like as little things, right? I was not able to do that 5 years ago, right? But it's taken me these little bitty efforts at a time to do that. And I'm so incredibly, looking back and seeing the change, like I'm proud of myself. And so we have to remember that it takes time, and don't put so much pressure on yourself to go and just meet all these people. That's not how it works, right? So just give yourself some grace, give yourself some patience and some time, and know your limits. If you're tired, rest. When you need to rest, rest. Okay, I'm done with, sorry. I'm done with my monologue, but I love this conversation that we're having because it does take time to build these spaces. It does take time to build these communities. And, it's something that as I'm doing what I'm doing with my organization, it takes small efforts, right? So thank y'all so much for having me here. I really enjoy it. And Dustin, I've never seen you before, but I love what you're saying. So I'm excited to hear what else you got to say.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And like you're right. It's the small bits, the little pieces. Go ahead, Dustin.
Oh no, I was just thanking her. The to touch on again, like they are small. Like you will have however much community you put in the time to build. Like ultimately these tendrils, these relationships that you go out and foster, unless somebody reaches out to you, understand that it only happens by virtue of acting. Like you have to go do the thing. And there is no way around that. Like maybe somebody will bring you into community. You can hope for that. But I mean, there's a big difference between hope and action. You can take it upon yourself to go foster these, even if it's somebody who doesn't necessarily agree. It is the curmudgeon. It is the person who has certain objectionable beliefs. If it's just knowing that what kind of neighbor that you have to that side of you, there is value in at least that much knowledge. There is value in going and doing the work. Again, like what you guys said, you're allowed to be burnt out. You're allowed to have had a long ass week, and maybe there's a community meeting. It's like, hey, bro, not tonight. I'm tired. I'm beat. Like sometimes you're gonna have to ask for grace, and hopefully that you have people who love you enough to extend it to you. Again, that's part of the trust thing. But then also like sometimes you got to dig down and like people need help, and yeah, you're tired, but somebody's got to help. Like their water line is ruptured. And their water is bleeding out. They don't have access to a shower. Their kids, like they got to be to work. It would happen. Like we could get this fixed way easier if we had a couple pair of hands. And sometimes it involves getting up at 8:30 at night and going down and helping somebody when they need it. Like these are decisions that you have to make personally. Like I would like to be the type of friend that I would like to have that type of friend. And in order for me to expect to have that kind of friendship, I kind of need to be willing to offer it to other people. But it takes work, and it's worth doing the work.
Absolutely. Well said. And yeah, you're right. There's, if none of community is not always convenient. And you're right. That idea of like somebody in the community is going to need help at an inconvenient time. That's part of the work. And it's like you showing up for that person when it is inconvenient and you are tired and whatnot. It's a big piece of that puzzle of trust and safety, because then reciprocally, if something happens to you at your place, you would want those people to, even though they're tired from a long day, get up off the couch and come help you. It's a mutual back and forth that, it does take time, and it does start from like small little things. There's not, hopefully there's not going to be a disaster in your area that sparks this community. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't help. It doesn't happen with the impact. Hopefully it happens long before the impact. So that way, when there is something that impacts your community, it only makes you guys stronger. You don't have to start from square one in the middle of the shit, because that's not going to be conducive for anybody. Now, of course, helpers will still come out of the woodwork, because like I do firmly believe, as like my hopeful eternal hippie self, that people more often are helpers. And like in those moments of tragedy and awful moments, we are more inclined to help each other than we are to, you know, screw each other over. And the trust of that situation doesn't start when the shit hits the fan. It hopefully starts long before then. And like the concept of which, you know, in any little manner of connection can really start this bridge. You know, it can be wave, you know, something as simple as just starting to wave to them when you see them out in their yard instead of like blatantly ignoring the fact that they have a presence in this world. I know that recently because I am, unfortunately, a cigarette smoker. And so, like, I'm spending time outside and, like, you know, I see people coming and going and I'm making sure to be the, you know, like, hey, neighbor, that kind of thing, you know? You know, I'm not on anyone's, like, first name basis as of yet. I've only been here about a week and a half. But, like, it's one of those things, like, it starts somewhere. And it starts with little small things. The chance to take just a few minutes of your day to have a conversation, to, you know, and it lays groundwork. And like, you know, people see each other's faces from, you know, on a long enough basis, they get familiar, and then like, you know, those relationships can grow. It does take work though. It's not passive. And it's one of those things that you get what you put in. And like, it's not a direct one-to-one. Like, you know, it's not like you put in 2 months of like awesome, stellar, you know, amazing community member stuff, and then you feel like you're set for life. And you know, no, it's a constant day by day. And sometimes it feels like a lot to ask, whether it is talking to people, people next door who might be across the ideological divide from you, seems like an insurmountable task. But what do you talk about? Like, that's the thing. That's the thing where you can start small. You can talk about the weather. It's rained here the last couple of days in the desert. That is conversation for people in the desert, you know, and it can start there. You know, and like there's a million different ways to start, but you have to be willing to take that step. And again, I'm going to go to the fact that every single topic that we've talked about has a piece of introspection about it. And when it comes to neighborhood safety and trust, it's no different. Because like we have to know about ourselves, what we are capable of, what we're not capable of, where our limits and boundaries and all of those things are before we even approach the community to have, you know, questions and people, you know, and have that conversation. We gotta know ourselves first. Thank you really quickly. I want to say everybody in the comment section, I'm really grateful to people who are here, you know, typing along and giving us some feedback and stuff, liking and sharing and all the good stuff. That's absolutely vital. We're coming up on about the hour mark of this 2-hour conversation. And I just really appreciate those who are sitting with us today to have this discussion. So thank you for being here. Let's just go ahead and open the conversation to whatever we want to talk about.
Can I hone in on relationships, because whether it's you're familiar, whether it's romantic, whether it's platonic, or whatever it is, something that I think that we often forget is even if the person was not meant to stay around in your life forever, doesn't mean your relationship with them is not incredibly valuable, right? Because think about every single relationship that you have in your life, especially the ones that didn't stick around forever, right? They may have brought you something that changed your life in the future, but it may have just seemed small, but because that one person. So even though someone, and we have to remember, like, just because we don't have lifelong friendships doesn't mean those friendships aren't incredibly valuable, right? It's like when you think of the tree metaphor, right? Those leaves are there for a purpose, right? Those branches, those limbs, but they're there for a purpose. They're there to provide shade. They're there to provide comfort, even if they're not meant to stay there for long term, even if they're not going to be your best friend, right? They provided something, and you provided to them the thing that you each other needed in that moment. Like when you stop and say, like, I love that example of, you know, if there's an emergency, your water line breaks in your neighborhood, right? You help that person. That person may not be your best friend for life, and that's okay. But you gave them that little bit of hope that strangers or acquaintances or neighbors, whether how much you know them or not, that person helped me. So they may take that and experience it in another event. And you're like, I remember these people helping me. And then in another event, they get to now be the opportunity to help somebody else, right? It's just that passing that forward, taking the thing that you did, that someone did for you or you did for them, and continuing the cycle. And that's how you build these stronger communities, right? Even people that I haven't talked to in decades, right? People that I served the military with, like, I don't talk to them often, but every once in a while we do talk, and they're like, hey, I want to say thank you. I'll say it to them, or they'll say to me, hey, thank you for sharing this information, because now I get to use this here and it's really benefited my life, or vice versa, right? So these little, you can't shame people or hate on yourself or question yourself why you're not maintaining these lifelong friendships, because they may not have meant to, but they may have had a huge impact on you, or even now or in the future. And so value those smaller relationships, taking those opportunities to learn how to communicate with each other, right? Taking those steps, because those, maybe just a statement could change your life, right? Just how you approach things, how you see things, and putting yourself in vulnerable positions. Being vulnerable is hard, right? Right now, I was like, I knew I was tired, but I felt like I needed to be seen. I don't know why I felt that way, but I was like, you know what? I want to be seen right now. And so, but it's a vulnerable thing. It's scary to put your face on there, right? And it's scary to put yourself out there. And but you're also showing somebody else that you're doing that. You're being the example. You're walking that talk, right? You're showing that it can be done even in the minute situations. So I just heard some of the things y'all were saying, and I just loved it. And I just had to caveat.
No, I absolutely love that addition to it too as well, because there's so many different facets to this, and that's one of the things about the conversation. Like, there's the umbrella of, we're talking about safety and trust, but like that itself is about relationships, and it's about community commitment, and it's about the self as well. Like if I am, because of circumstances, like unhinged, like, I've gone down the rabbit hole of like legitimately making myself a bit delusional, mentally unwell. I wouldn't, and because of that, because I know that journey, I know that when I'm in that state of being, I was not a good community member. I was scared of my neighbor. I was, locking my doors. I was making sure I wasn't leaving the house without like a blade. And like, it was don't get me wrong, there's a certain level of like, knowing your surroundings, culpability, and like being aware and having the ability to defend yourself. And that's not what I'm really saying. But like, I was to the point scared of the world where like, I didn't want to initiate. I didn't want to give anything of myself to get anything back. To me, that was dangerous. And like putting that version of myself into a community to try and like build safety and trust would be disastrous. And so that's where that level of introspection of like knowing where you're good, where your strengths are, and like what you can do, like Dustin teaching people safety tips and things like that. That's a valuable skill that can help build that community and strengthen the confidence of that community. So when there is something inevitably down the pipeline, they're prepared, and they're stronger together for it. That takes knowing that you have the skill to even teach in the first place. You know what I mean? And everybody has a way to engage, and sometimes it's as simple as like the peacekeeping, breaking bread, the meals, and like putting yourself out there in the capacity that you can, and meeting others where they are in the capacity that they have, is where that community is built. It's where that trust is started and sustained. And it's one of those, and it's one of those things that it's not a once in the pan kind of deal and you're set. It's little actions every single day.
No, absolutely. Just a heads up, I am gonna have to hop off here in about 5 minutes or so. My daughter is she's gonna finish up jujitsu, and we're gonna have to drive home. But I've been training again. She wanted to train, and so we've been doing that. She's enjoying it quite a bit. The idea of her being able to wrestle her brother and win is high on her priority list. Proper motivation, but it is part of like what helps people. Like, I don't want to discount the online community that you've helped cultivate, Tripp. The exchange of ideas in the public forum do help. Like these conversations where I have the ability to hear the things that y'all say, different perspectives. Some of the things that Tony has said about tribalism have helped me kind of contextualize my place and kind of plan out how best to utilize my resources, where my impact is going to be felt the most. My impact is not going to be felt the most in, necessarily leftist spaces where everybody agree with me, but it's going to be in spaces where people do not agree with me, but happen to look like me and sound like me and come where I come from. And so the, the opportunity to have this exchange of ideas is meaningful as well. Like, it's not going to, like as Tony said, like, conversations on the internet ain't going to save us, but they do still matter, and they serve a purpose. So I appreciate you putting this forum together. I appreciate you having me and giving me the opportunity every time. I really do.
I absolutely appreciate you coming in and providing your perspective in these kinds of situations, because truth be told, like, the many fonts and flavors of what's needed to be discussed is a big portion of why I'm trying to bring people of different perspectives to sit at this table. And since I don't know, it's been a year and a half, almost 2 years since the video that I saw of yours that got me to follow along, and it's just like the level of the level of intelligence that you put into your videos and the thoughts and like the way that you express yourself, I resonated with me so deeply that I'm just really happy to have you in this space with me. So thanks for coming. I hope your kid had a great time at class and enjoy the rest of your evening for sure.
Thank y'all so much, Tony. Y'all have a great night. What do you got? It was fantastic meeting y'all. Y'all have a great evening.
All right. Well, and at that, we'll go ahead and say we have crossed the 1 hour mark. I just want to say thank you to everybody who is here, the ones who have followed along, the ones who are tapping, liking, sharing. This conversation absolutely does matter. Today, we're talking about neighborhood safety and trust. But again, like, it's all connected, which is why tomorrow's conversation live panel is just an idea of the connectedness of the conversation itself. So we have these pieces and abilities and chances to communicate together in community to strengthen the bonds and move forward in ways that are very significant. The idea of where we are today is, in some cases you can see as a very weakened state, but it doesn't have to stay that way. By simply having conversations with your neighbors about, it doesn't even have to be like the super important topics and things. It just needs to be something that is connecting, that you can form a bond over, something as silly as the weather or, the local sports team, what have you. There's a bunch of different ways to start building that platform, but building it is absolutely essential to moving forward in a better, brighter direction. Because we don't want to be atomized, individualized little bubbles that have to pay for everything and talk to nobody. That's the goal of the oligarchy, and we don't want that. We don't want to be slaves again. And so we have to transition and make new of the space. So thank you guys for being here. I'm just gonna go ahead and open the conversation. How are we feeling about this chat so far?
Well, now I feel like I can open my space for people who've never seen me before. My name is Ann. I am the owner, CEO of What You Got US. And my particular community, my nonprofit, is based on the idea of trading and bartering, not goods, services, and intellectual property. So taking the things that you have, like things in your storage sheds, just things in your closets, the things that things that you inherit from your grandparents that they gave to you because you felt like you had to take it, but you're never going to use it, right? But somebody else could. So that is a thing. I feel like we have everything within what the things that we need, instead of buying it, trading and bartering with each other, right? In order to have the things that we need, instead of feeding this consumerism type mentality that we've had in this country, right? And this is one of the reasons why I've supported some of these pressure initiatives that Tripp, we all support the blackout the system and things like that, because we truly believe that we have everything right now to not just survive, but to thrive and to help each other, right? As a community-based nonprofit. So we want to be able to come together in many different fashions. And my particular fashion is trading and bartering of goods and services, right? So thank you. And that's something that I am trying to, this is technically a national brand, right? But we're also teaching I have a small nonprofit that I am working with right now and helping him get his nonprofit paperwork taken care of and put together. I'm so excited. He got his EIN today. I'm super stoked for that. It's a lot easier than people realize, and it doesn't cost as much as people realize, right? And it takes a lot of planning. And so my organization and some of these other organizations want to help others not only build your maybe a small business, because I can help you build that, but we can also help collaborate and trade resources. A lot of these basically what we are is a coalition, right? We're a big coalition. And so we're using our resources and we're kind of bouncing off each other. We're supporting each other. We're promoting each other, right? And I think that in and of itself is a community, whether it's virtually or not, right? We're practicing doing how to do that. So when we can go to our local communities, and it's easier for us to do that because we already talked about this. I can walk in this space and I know what I'm talking about, right? So, but for real, that really is what this is. And so it's something that I think is really important to talk about, but that is what Do You Got US is. We are a community-based mutual aid nonprofit based on the idea of trading and bartering. So I know some people haven't seen me here, but I wanted to say hi. That is who I am. And I'm very lucky to be in this space with these people, with you all. So.
And see, it's that trading and bartering thing that I feel is like, it's a creative, it's not even a new solution. You know, it's something that's actually been around for a long time. But it's one of those things that like, it's new to us. It's new to this system where purchase is the almighty power. And I think that the ability to think in that way, that outside the box, the bartering system and stuff is a great way to build community trust, you know, because like and we've seen other examples of it. Lawrence with Farm Fresh 24/7 is running something very similar, but with specifically food, and the idea of like, you know, there's people that, you know, he barters bread from, where he gives them, you know, zucchini or what have you. And it's like those people are absolute, like he's got his community kind of on lock to the point where now he's starting to build and spread outwards, and they've got wonderful ideas and amazing plans. And it's a great like proof of concept. And to see actions like yours as well, it feels to me like, you know, the collective unconscious has been boiling with ideas and concepts like this because it's absolutely needed. And to see people take up the reins and be like, I'm going to be the one that showcases some semblance of this plan working, so that way other people can be inspired, you know, like, and you've got the receipts, you're showing people it can be done. And so like that inspiration, may it flood forward and create giant ripples of change. Tony, what about you? How you feeling?
I feel great. What do you want from me, Tripp? You want me to say something specific?
Yeah,
I'm done eating now. I didn't want to put any clothes on, so this is what you get.
That's
this is
fine.
me in my nighttime mode. Okay,
that's more than fine.
You don't know if I'm Winnie the Pooh or not. You don't know. You'll never know.
You can't be Winnie the Poohing if you're not wearing a shirt.
I am also a little disappointed that nobody called out my.
We don't know you without clothes, okay? We don't know you with clothes on, Tony. That's just all your videos. You never have clothes on, so this is normal for us.
I don't like rules, man. And if I'd never had to put them on, I wouldn't. Okay, that's just where we're at. You know.
As far as the neighborhood safety and trust.
Do you want me to talk about neighborhood safety and trust? Again, this boils down to relationships, and you know. I'm reminded of one of the Dustin earlier had mentioned that he doesn't argue with people on Facebook anymore with the long comments and things like that. And the last time I did that, I remember one of my friends was going off. She was talking about how like she doesn't have to be kind, you know, kindness and the pleasantries of life and, oh, spare me this. And it was like the first time I had encountered that sentiment. This wasn't the last fight I got in a Facebook. This would have been like 10 years ago. But I remember being kind of grossed out by that sentiment. And then I watched it grow, where it's like there's this meme about pleasantries when you're in public and not talking about the weather, not saying, oh, hey, hello, oh, excuse me, oh, let me get the door for it. Like all that stuff. They were basically just saying, I don't owe you anything. You know, I don't give you my consent. I don't owe you any sort of energy that I have in here, which from a certain point of view is true. You don't owe anybody shit. But then we have to ask ourselves, to what end? And are there benefits to the pleasantries that maybe we're missing out on by skipping them? You know, and I just think that that's a really interesting phenomenon that I've seen play out. And I always talk shit about the Hot Topic and Spencer Gift shirts that says like, you know, I hate humans, or I like the voices in my head better than, you know, people on the outside or whatever. And what used to be this like cute, kitschy, like attitude, sassy thing in the late 90s, it like turned into an entire personality where they're walking embodiments of those sentiments. And I'm like, wait a minute, you realize that that's like not actually cool in practice, right? Like it's funny to read on a shirt because every once in a while we all have that feeling, especially when you get cut off in traffic. We all feel that from time to time, but like to actually like permanently exude this is weird, right? And so we have to learn how to like human beings again. Because here's the part where I'll land the plane. Furthermore, when we have conversations about community, somebody will say, well, this will never work. And the line that I've been using on them when people say, well, you know, this will never work is, it won't work to what? To do what? What do you think it is that we're trying to do here? And they always end up having some like Tyler Durden, like we're crashing buildings and all of this crash the system. No, that's not what we're trying to do. And the trouble is people don't have any idea what revitalization and prosperity really looks like. Because that's really what we're aiming for here is widespread prosperity, the revitalization of our small towns, coming together with fresh ideas and innovation on how to do that. And so what would a win even look like? Well, how about that local factory becoming employee owned? That's a win. Now, do we look around the world and does it solve all the world's problems? No, but it fixes one little problem in one little place. And it's that kind of, I think, humility that we all need. So many people are dying for like the big shift, the big change. And they think that it's some automatic thing. They either think that somebody else is going to spur the revolution, or maybe just the astrological charts will lead us into the age of Aquarius and everybody will just automatically, no. We do this. It's active work. And we need to be humble in the fact that what I can affect in my little neck of the woods and what Tripp, I don't even know if I know your full name. I just call you what you got.
It's Ann, by the way.
Hi, Ann. Or what Ann can do in their little corner of the world. You know what? No, I think you did tell me that before, but my time as a musician did horrible things to my short-term memory. But anyway, I think we need to just humble ourselves and realize that the revolution is slow and it's about a way of life. We're not asking for new systems. I don't want new suit and tie or new pencil skirt on some social media platform telling me how they're going to get elected and change the world. I don't give a shit about that anymore. I've had enough of that. And I'd like us to humble ourselves and just start doing the real things on the ground, the little by little, day by day thing all around the country in what way you can to instigate real, long-lasting, brick-by-brick foundation building for the society we would rather live in. So when we talk about security, I think people should absolutely have neighborhood watches, but don't let that power get to your head. HOAs, yeah, be the president of the HOA, but don't let that power get to your head. Start a citizen militia. I might be a little less like way lefty than some people in these circles, and I like the Second Amendment. And I absolutely think, though, that you shouldn't get power hungry. Don't be stupid. But it's there for a reason. Like it's baked into this motherfucker for a reason. I just think that we need to have a very serious chat about trust and why we don't have trust for ourselves, our lovers, our family, our friends, and then outside of that circle of influence, the community and the government and institutions at large. Distrust, I would say, is at an all-time high. And I'll say that with no stats to back it up because I just know that I'm right. Prove me wrong, I dare you. Distrust is at an all-time high on all levels of our relationship to this society. And the only way to fix it isn't by banning social media. That's the thing everyone wants to blame. And sure, social media has a part. But at the end of the day, we do that. I have to just go trust that somebody's not going to let me down. And if they let me down, I can't use their letdown to then define everybody else that I come across. What you see in the dating world all the time. All men, all women, all some
Monolithing.
but not all.
Monolithing.
Yeah, it's monolithing, and it's not good for us. It can be fun. It's good for comedy. It's good for poetry, and it can be effective in storytelling and certain things like that. But when it comes to our actual interactions, monolithing's the worst thing that we can do.
Absolutely.
And I think we need a trust fall exercise. And this is that to me, and I am joking, but at the same time, that's what this community building thing is to me. I trust you to go do the thing. I run a business. If I start a business, I need to run it in the way that I believe businesses should be run, or I'm full of shit. And you have to trust me to do that. That's that the revolution will prove itself to be a collective trust fall. That's what I'll say.
Word. Well said. Well said. And like, you're right. There's not one big answer. It is a bunch of tiny little answers. It's a bunch of tiny little moments of progress and movement in ways. There's been some lovely comments in here, guys. I really appreciate y'all having the conversation down here in the chat as well. We got Tori coming in saying, I had to scroll back up 1 sec. It's a compilation of tiny bits of progress. Absolutely right. Billy King saying humility plays such a big part of it. You're right. 100%. There is an effect to this where it happens in the day-to-day. It happens every day. It's not once you've achieved a certain level, you're good for golden for life. Again, I will bring up Ruger Bergman and his book Utopia for Realists. The idea of like, if we think we have reached the zenith of society, we think we've made it, then we're going to inevitably start backsliding. And that's what we've been seeing. We've been seeing a massive backslide because there are pieces of our society that people on the collective have gotten comfortable with. And because of that, and I think the atomization, the apathy, the idea of like, I get mine, so what does it matter else, the world over, as long as I get mine, I'm good. That's asking the wrong, questions. And basically what we need is this paradigm shift to get to an interdependent place where we're asking what's good for all of us. And that itself is going to have a highly set of nuanced answers. That's not going to look like any one big thing. There is no true monolith except for in places like comedy and storytelling. When it really comes down to it, in the actual reality of the world, people are full of nuances. And even if they do believe one ideological stance, doesn't mean that they all stand on this, giant pedestal of like, this is the way they are completely. It is but one facet to the whole person. And that is true of every neighbor that lives around you. That is true of every person in this country and on this planet. And that's just facts. And what we do about that moving forward in a way to build a better society and get to a point where we can actually have, some semblance of, I wouldn't necessarily call it utopia, but at least just a working civilization that works for the majority amount of people, is by every single person taking an action that they see the opportunity to take. And it could be as little as, hosting the potluck or the sweet corn kind of thing in the afternoon. So that way your neighborhood gets to know your face and you guys get to talk about the ideas. And it could, people showing up at their town halls and like people being civically engaged because they want better. That's what we need. We need to participate. Amen. Well said, Tori. So thank you guys. And again, this is a huge conversation. There's so many different facets and pieces. I know that before starting it, I felt like there was going to be, more of a 2A kind of conversation to this, because usually when people think safety, they think, and that's not untrue. I know that in the neighborhood that I live in, I'm pretty sure every single house has at least some sort of hunting equipment or what have you. Like, it's just the kind of area that I live in. And that isn't, safety in that regard is an important sense, but it is such a small piece to what like community safety and trust actually is. Like, I'm not saying that I'm glad we didn't talk about it, but I am saying like, I'm surprised it wasn't mentioned.
Well, I would like to
chime
in. I do want to chime in. I am a Second Amendment supporter, right? It's something that I am not afraid to say. But at the same time, I was in the military. I have a different point of view than most people. I have risk assessment and risk mitigation is in my utmost mind constantly. I'm constantly scanning, constantly paying attention to my surroundings. And that is what I was trained to do, but also it is a reactive situation with my PTSD, right? It's very much, but I think that when it comes to security, something that we all need to take personal responsibility with is being aware of your surroundings. What do you tell people? Do you tell them public facing information, or do you just outright give them your social security card number, right? And your date of birth and where you lived and what your mom's maiden name is, right? I think when it comes to security, that is a personal responsibility, right? You're being mindful of the things that you just gab about, right? You're being mindful of the people you're talking about. You're looking at let's get real. Our parents and our grandparents said nothing good happened after midnight. Come on now. Like there's certain things that we need to remember. There's certain things that we need to, and it's not me, it's not, by no means, because of the field that I'm in, by no means is victim shaming, but at the same time, what environments are you putting yourself in? Are you putting yourself in spaces that could escalate quickly, right? Are you prepared for that? Do you have a game plan for that? If something does escalate, what is your next move to make sure that you're prepared to get out of that space safely? Do you know where your exits are? Do you remember where you put your car, for heaven's sakes, right? The security and safety is very personal, and it should be taken. You shouldn't just rely on the mama bear that's going to hang out with her 10 ducklings when she's in New Orleans with a whole bunch of kids that are under the age of 30, making sure they get back to the barracks safely. I'm not going to I don't want to do that. It's everyone's, that's a true story. That happened, okay, for me. All right. I was the mama bear of like 10 different young ducklings, right? So, a mama duck, but like safety and security is you being aware of what is going on, who you're with, what you're doing, how you're going about doing it. Especially when it comes to building communities and building that trust, right? You don't want to just give all of yourself at one point. You give the bits and pieces of yourself that's going to connect. And when you start building those relationships, you might give them a little bit more information, right? That's part of it. Personal security and safety is personal, and we have to take it personally. Sorry, we got a fly problem in Oklahoma right now. And it is there. I have massacres every night. But no, for real, like it's something that we need to we need to take it personally. And especially when we're like people like me, who I am building communities, right? There's certain things I don't mind giving out, but there's certain things I will not. Right? Because I don't know these people firsthand. My organization is developing a security and safety protocol for our members, right? But we're having to, what is going to cover the weakest link, right? But at the same time, like it's personal for me because I know that my own traumas that have happened to me and the things that I have experienced and the training that I have had, like I know what to look. I know those red flags because I was trained to know those red flags. I experienced the red flags, so I remember that said red flag, right? So it's one of those things. But we all need to think about the things that we've been through, what those ugly things that we've been through. Remember how we got to that point. What can we learn from that, and apply that to our everyday life and our interpersonal relationships that we build with these communities with people we do not know. And that's something that's very, very important. I'm really big on security and safety, but I also, at what point do I hand the book off to you and say, okay, now it's your turn. Now you need to be mindful of yourself. I cannot hold your hand through everything, right? So that is my safety and security speech.
No, and I love that. I love that because it definitely does start with intrinsic, the self and that kind of thing, and then extends outward. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I think situational awareness is the big one. I have a couple things. There's one that's kind of funny, and I didn't know that this was a shared male experience until later in my life, where I would always have this recurring dream with my ex where there was an active pew-pew situation. And the dream went the same every time. I looked at her and I'm like, get down on the ground. And she looked at me like, why? And it doesn't end well for her in that dream. And I would get mad, so mad that it's like the female equivalent of like when you dream that he cheats and you wake up mad at him anyway. Like I'd wake up mad at her, but like, you didn't duck, man. I told you to duck and you were worried about why I was asking you to duck. So that's a funny thing about situational awareness. And I didn't know that so many other guys had that dream about their lady. Oh man. Anyway, and so the other thing I'll say is when we had a music festival, it was about 10 years ago. We had it on our property. It was a 2-day event, multiple bands, multiple dozens of bands. And someone had partied too much and they were becoming a problem. And luckily, rather than hiring police to be there, we had a couple friends who were like bail bondsmen, and they offered to run security. And this guy was causing major problems. And so he's obviously being dispatched to go handle it and take the guy up front where he waits. We wanted the sheriffs to pick up any troublemakers at the road. This is in the Prohibition era of Ohio. That's all I'll say about that. So we kept them at the end of the driveway. And so the bail bondsman took him out. But as he was walking up, he was seeing red because this dude was being inappropriate. He had partied too much. It was bad. It was time for him to go. But I grabbed him by the shoulder and I'm like, Zach, he's a human being. Like, just remember, like, he's just struggling right now. And he like had to take a breath and he was like, thanks, man. I needed that. I was about ready to throw down. I was like, I know. I seen it. Like, I get you, but like, let's measure it a little bit, man. Like, we don't have to go over there with such, machismo or bravado. Like, he knows he's in trouble now, especially once you walk over because he was jacked. And so, but that took a handful of people being like, hey, this person may have partied too much. Now he's on our radar. And then another person says, hey, I saw a guy over here by the porta potties, And it's like our network of people all communicated to get this person where they needed to be for the rest of the night. And giving me festival hosting PTSD. Yeah, it happens, man. I like yours. Yours seemed so chill. But either way, it's a communal effort. And the last part that I'll say about this anecdotally, as far as my own experiences, so that I don't just repeat my everybody needs community monologue again, I'll save that for final words. The other part is in the small town that I grew up in, I was always the not the troublemaker, but like I was the kid that parents were like not sure about. There's a deeper story about that, but either way, it was very annoying that so many of the small town parents were up our ass constantly. They were watching us. They knew everywhere we went, everything that we did. If we were trying to have a Camel wide out behind the pizza joint in the woods, somebody saw it and somebody told this person's parents, and it sucked because here we're just trying to break a couple rules. Like, there's this victimless crime here, baby. Like, what are you doing to us? But in hindsight, that is extremely valuable. The kids will be annoyed, especially if I'm just trying to have a little grass out behind the merry-go-round, man. What are you busting my chops for, man? Don't be a narc. Don't be a snitch. Nobody likes a snitch, except for the parents. Parents love snitches. As a parent now, like, I was never snitch back in the day. Zero snitch energy. But when it comes to like my daughter and who she's hanging out with and what's going on, snitch, man. If she's doing something, tell me. I'm Big Brother now. I want my surveillance drones on every fucking corner of that playground. Like, I can't even help it. I didn't even mean for it to happen. But so when we talk about community security, this is sort of adjacent to the neighborhood watch sort of things. But this is also the benefit of just having friends and having a community. Even if you're not friends with Dick and Jane down at the corner of the street, you're well enough with them to where if they see something going down, they'll call you. The text is be like, hey, a little bit weird, but I saw Johnny down here. Not really sure what they were doing. You should probably check it out. Like, having each other's, it seems so simple. Actually, you know what? The place I'll land is in the Simon Sinek speech about leadership after school on YouTube. I'm always pushing people to go watch this. Find it on TikTok, everybody. You can find it readily, and you don't even have to leave the app to go and find this video. So there's a channel called After School, SKOOL, where they do the hand comes in and draws the animations over these like famous speeches or presentations or whatever. And Simon Sinek has one on leadership, where if we go back to the most ancient versions of what we're talking about, somebody's got to stay awake all night to look for predators. And if it's a dog eat dog, only looking out for myself kind of world, I ain't going to be able to sleep. Nobody's going to be able to sleep. Because the idea is, I'll take the night watch and you get some rest next to the fire. I'm going to let you sleep for a few hours. And when you wake up, I'm going to take a nap and you watch out for the saber-toothed tigers. This is the most fundamental principle of human civilization. And we're living in a world where those fundamental pillars of human civilization, cooperation, interaction, and tribal living have all but been eroded. I'll give us a little credit. I won't be a dooms guy, but we're very close to having no underpinning for civilization. All of those crucial things. Trust. We can barely trust ourselves. Like, you could say right now, I'm going to quit smoking cigarettes, but you won't. Why? Because you know deep down you don't trust yourself. As soon as that little thing in your brain, that circuit goes off, it's just like, hey, come on. Me, you, nicotine, we go back a long ways. I'm harmless. Come on, let's step out back. A little me, you time, you're going to feel better. And you're going to do it. So even on a wide spread, my dad can't quit soda to save his life. Old people can't stop tuning in to Fox and MSNBC and getting their anxiety spiked for the day. We have these weird little things that we don't even trust ourselves to stop. Our marriages are falling apart because of the distrust, either mishandling of finances or adultery and all those other things. Families are falling apart. Oh, I haven't talked to my mom since the pandemic. Oh, I don't talk to my brother anymore. We don't communicate. Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I'm telling you, that's the fabric of civilization. And I don't know how the average person defines society, some amorphous, vague thing in their imagination, but like, that's society, and it's all falling apart. We don't trust ourselves or anything like that. And so it really begins with trusting again and having that neighborhood watch. So when shit's weird in your neck of the woods, somebody says something. The awful train footage of the Ukrainian girl. Why did everybody sit there? It's that age-old nightmare of the person getting mugged in Manhattan and everybody stands by. Only the difference between that urban legend of the 90s and today is that everybody's standing there with the phone. What the hell is wrong with us, man? We're so disconnected. We cannot be surprised. And that's why it drives me crazy when people say that the end of this American empire is nigh. And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't have to be. It's like everyone's rowing towards the waterfall. Just like, yep, it's going to go down. It's like, yeah, you're all rowing in that direction. What do you mean? What do you mean? So we have to start rowing in a new direction, one of trust, one of accountability, and a little bit of risk taking, because it's risky to fall in love. It's risky to trust your neighbor. It's risky to run for office. It's risky to go to city council and tell them how you feel. And as we found out yesterday, it's risky just to stand on your beliefs. Our society is broken, and it starts with us. We are the Band-Aids. We are the Neosporin. We are the salve. We are the healing, and it starts with us.
Word. Well said. And you're right on about so much of it. There's a concept of this where we find ourselves in the society we are today because of happenstance, whether it be people who had an agenda and that brought us to this space, or if it all happened by accident or some combination of the two. But we have found ourselves in a space of where our community is either feels like a facade, feels fake, feels like, it's the foundations of such are crumbling. And we all kind of innately want to point the finger at somewhere else and be like, this is the problem, this is the issue, this is the thing that did it. But really, we play a part in it. We play a part in how our communities are formed, how they continue, and how they thrive every single day. It's little choices and battles, not anything grandiose. We're not going David and Goliath style here. This isn't that kind of thing. It's small little things, small battles every single day. The conversations and what have you, showing trust in the way of holding yourself accountable. Like he said with the quit smoking thing, I'm working on downscaling, because you're right. I don't trust myself to go cold turkey. I know what I'm like without it, and it's not pleasant for anybody. But I've held myself to a standard where right now I'm making sure that my pack lasts 3 days. And when I feel comfortable and confident enough that I can get that done, then it'll be 4 days, and then it'll be 5 days, and I'm weaning myself off because I'm keeping promises to myself slowly over time.
I'm gonna stand up for you so hard right now. So Tony, you can just suck it, okay? How many vices, ma'am, do you have?
Yeah, I think she means you. Yo.
How many vices, ma'am, Tripp, do you have?
Me? Vices?
Yes.
Oh gosh.
Yes.
I have to actually count them on live TV.
Okay, but never mind. Never mind. Okay, so listen to me right now. I have 2 vices that I do actively. Okay, all right. Now, listen to me right now. I am there. The reality of it is if we give up everything that gives us a little bit of that comfort, then we become this person that we're just cranky, and you watch these old ladies that have lived to 130 years old, and they're like, how did you survive us off a cigarette and a Dr. Pepper every single day? Like, for heaven's sakes, live. Okay, now if you got a lot of vices, ma'am, if you got a lot, then maybe you might need to work on some others. But listen, it's those vices that they help us relax. They may not exactly be healthiest. They may not, but they help us. Marcos just said they help us tolerate everything else. And if we eliminate all the things that help us tolerate life, then we're going to be really unhappy people. Right? So it's like, I'm not giving up my ice cream cone that I have every single night. In fact, I'm cranky because I didn't have one last night because we ran out. We're going to go get groceries here in a little bit. Okay. Like, I like my ice cream. I like my sandwiches at 3:00 in the morning when I wake up and all of a sudden I'm hungry. Like, listen, the reality of it is vices. Everyone has their vice. Everyone does a thing that not everyone agrees with. So I'm going to support you on that. All right. I don't care. Well,
I appreciate that.
I'm gonna die on that hill, okay?
It's just a matter. It's just if you trust yourself. Listen, one of the most inspiring things, and this is
sorry, I had to support her.
This is filled with irony. I do too. I love Trippy, and I'm a former tobacco burner. But either way, a friend of mine had a father, and he was the first person that I knew who was like excessively overweight, and I mean like he was a very, very big guy. They needed like a forklift for his casket when he finally passed away. But he passed away in his 50s, and the doctor told him, hey man, if you don't change the way you're eating, you are going to pass away. And he said, if I can't live my life eating what I want to eat, then life's not worth living. And that's some legendary shit right there. Like, I don't agree with it. Like, there's the inside, my insides, my whole like, but what about your gut microbiome? And you're like, all that part of me is like, but mister, you're going to perish. There's that. But then there's also this other side of me that's just like, you know what, damn it? That is some John Wayne level shit. You know what, dude? Fucking fine, I guess. Go with it.
Word. And it's like, yeah, the quality of life, the ones, because like I often say, because of my past and growing up and stuff like that, it's easy for me to say that life is hard to do sober. Like, it's just, it's really hard to raw dog this life completely 100% like on the level. And like, we can sit and talk about all the different kinds of substances one can get into. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's a personal choice how you decide to engage in the system. And that's part of the introspection part. And what I will say on the topic of like the when it comes to the neighborhood. So like my dad, for instance, loved alcohol quite a bit. It was a monkey on his back for the majority of the time I knew him anyway. And it's one of those things where he was still a good community member. He still showed up and was there for people. He ran his own garage business for a long time. So anybody's car in the neighborhood that got broken, he would fix it. And sometimes he'd fix it for a 12-pack. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that was the way he decided. And like as a young child, trying to get him to like sober up was like one of those things. It's one of those. It's a difficult situation because like where we are and how we perceive the world, it matters, and that sort of deal. I will say that we are barreling in towards the time of last words, so I'm going to wax poetic for just a few moments, and then I think we're going to go counterclockwise today and start off with Ann and then go to Tony.
Okay, cool, because I got to get going sooner rather than later. We really need groceries, and I don't want to be home. I don't want to get home at 9 o'clock.
Word.
So the closing remarks, I'm going to say this. What we're going through right now with happening in society is really hard. And the one thing that I want you all to remember is we're never supposed to do any of this by ourselves. We need each other. If you are feeling lonely, if you are feeling like you don't know what else to do, I'm telling you right now, follow us and reach out to us. We will have no problem talking to you. Okay. We know how difficult it is to do things by yourself, and no, we're not supposed to do that. Whether it's me helping you, if you feel comfortable with me, whether it's anybody else in this group, all our members down below, they're amazing in the comments. And so something that just remember, you're not supposed to do this by yourself. We're supposed to support each other. You're not, we need each other to keep going, and we can be each other's vices if we have to. Right. So, I love you all very much, and I am so pleased to be here. And, I can't wait to see where we're going to go, because I have lots of hope. So take care.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your perspective, my friend. Enjoy grocery shopping and getting them ice cream cones.
I'm about to go do that right now. So I'll talk to y'all later.
Right on. Tony, let's go ahead and have you come in with some final words if you're in a space for it. If not, I guess I could vamp for a moment. You ready? You ready to do this?
I guess, yeah. All rebellions are built on hope. And what does it mean to rebel? It just means that you don't want to go with the status quo. And right now, the status quo is pushing humanity in a direction that so many of us feel is unsustainable. And no matter who I'm talking to, whether it's a Christian conservative or an atheist leftist or any of the shades in between and around, we all feel that there's a great shift happening. And I don't know how to use scientific or woo-woo terms to define what that is. But when we say the collective conscious is boiling, that's what we mean. We all feel that something is changing. And as someone who's been trying to answer the question of what do we do next to rebel, to go against that system, it feels more and more to me that we just do that thing that we've always done. We explore, we innovate, we revitalize, we rebuild. This is what humanity has done over and over and over again, and we are all equipped down to the very finest parts of our DNA. We are coded for this. We've been doing this for thousands of years. Building, exploring, innovating, cooperating. Yes, warring. Yes, I know, all those other things too. But for now, there's a pivotal, foundational element of humanity that is missing, and that is community. We cannot let it die in the face of a burgeoning new world, because there's a new world coming, and we all know it. Something is going to give. We don't know when. We don't know if it's going to be overnight, some slow, gradual change, but we know that we are in that turning of the page. We all feel it. And so I'd much rather feel like I'm doing something productive. That's all. I want to know that I did what I could do, because if you're frustrated with the world, it's easy to look back and past and be like, what the fuck were grandma and grandpa doing? What were their grandparents doing? Like, how could anybody just let this happen? Look around and look in the mirror. This is how it happens. You're living your life. You're tired, you're hungry, you're lonely. You got all these things going on in your day to day, and then you have to like come on to the internet and see all this other crazy shit happening, especially those of us in this circle. It's easy. It's easy to let the world go by. But I also don't want to raise a musket in the air and burn piles of flags and chase the rats out of the Capitol. Like, all that stuff sounds like some sort of John Wick fantasy. And I'm not here for it, man. I want to feel like I'm actually doing something. Because everybody that I hear that wants to do that and flip the Monopoly board, I don't hear a whole lot of great ideas for what comes after. And if I do hear some ideas, they're what we're talking about now. Where you could just do that now. Yes. So why don't we just skip that other part and start doing it, And that's how we build the trust that's needed to even have the conversation about security and community. Because we're going to have to earn that from one another. And I think showing up and actually being the change is one surefire way to at least get people to trust you enough. And that's where I'll end it, It's going to take trust to even have this conversation. So to get there, it's like you and I have been talking about for years, Trippy. It's the receipts, man. If we can't show that it's working, then it doesn't work. I say it to the communists all the time. Love you.
Love you too, homie. Thanks for joining us today for this conversation. Your perspective is always really enjoyable piece to kind of back and forth with. So I appreciate you being here. And bring in your perspective, bring in your fire. As far as like neighborhood safety and trust is concerned, it's such a big piece of the conversation that feels like amalgamous, and we went a lot of different places today, and it all connects. And so thank you for helping connect the conversation and all that stuff. So until next time, bye, my guy. Have a great night. All right, and with that, another piece of this conversation has been had. Neighborhood safety and trust, like I said just a minute ago, it's a big amalgamous pie. There's a lot of facets to it, and it does absolutely start intrinsically with ourselves. You don't have to do it all. In fact, nobody expects any one person to do everything. It's little pieces, little bits of conversation, building relationships over time. Sometimes if you have in your area a trusted third space, library, park, what have you, a place where people can come gather. If you're religious and you go to the weekly sermons and whatever, and you sing and you participate in the fellowship, like those are the communities, those are the neighborhoods of trust and safety that are being built. Those relationships that you are forming are the important bits that lead to society as a whole gaining momentum in the right direction. But it does take action on your part every single day to move forward. And with that, our neighborhood and safety and trust discussion has been concluded. Again, I want to thank all the panelists who came up and had conversation. And I want to thank the people in the chats who have been, supplying us with some really great food for thought of their own. Y'all are the reason why I'm here. I'm here facilitating this conversation because I feel it's important to the matter of discourse going forward. I feel like this movement needs people to showcase good ideas and, conversation that'll move us in the right direction, because we're battling the doom and gloom that the oppressors want us to feel paralyzed by and filled with apathy and ennui and unable to take any actions for ourselves. So we are here to combat that. Every little piece helps. Every piece of this conversation is important. And because of that, here we are. The last 3 episodes that we did are up on the Tube of View. If anybody is interested in checking out the conversations we've had this week, it may be in preparation for tomorrow, or just in the way of enjoying this conversation being had. Tell your friends, let them know, let this grow in popularity, please, because I really feel like if more people had the idea to even have this conversation, we could make a lot more progress pretty quickly. So tell your friends. Again, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you so much for giving me your time and being in my space. It's truly, I'm grateful for it. Absolutely grateful. And on that note, until next time, be well, fellow citizens.